9 Points About Reading by Arnold Bennett. This is recorded to celebrate the 9th anniversary of LibriVox. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. 1. It is not part of my scheme to advise on the choice of books. Although I have aforetime courageously committed this dangerous indiscretion, I have always been of opinion that it is possible to attach a great deal too much importance to the selection of the books one reads. Some people spend so vast an amount of energy on choosing books that they have none left to read them. They are so afraid lest they should read something not quite first-rate, not wholly approved of by the highest authorities, that they are apt to die off before they have settled down to actual reading. 2. To read a second-rate book well is better than to read a first-rate book badly. 3. A persistent reader will ultimately come into his own. I think of a persistent reader as a homing pigeon thrown up in a strange place. He rises and surveys the circle within his vision. If he doesn't see what he wants, he goes forward out of that circle until another circle is beneath his eyes. If again he doesn't see what he wants, he returns to the original point and begins afresh in a new direction, until at length he perceives a landmark that appeals to his soul. The rest is easy. 4. To obtain reliable information about the relative values of old books, established books, respectable books, is not difficult. The bibliographies given nowadays in most encyclopedias are, for instance, a sufficient guide to a commencing student. Chambers' Cyclopedia of Literature offers fairly complete information concerning the worth of everything that has achieved any sort of a niche in English literature. And as an example of a book giving advice about studies not always exclusively literary, I may mention Mr. J. Robertson's excellent Courses of Study. And there are scores and scores of manuals that weigh books of a certain age in a balance. It is the man bent upon reading new books, books which have not yet been sorted and ticketed, whose path is not so smooth. 5. There is no patent, simplified method of hitting upon the few good books concealed in the immense output of the year. They do not bear a special mark recognizable by the initiated. You can only consult your librarian and do as your librarian does, that is, read the reviews. I have often been interested at the carelessness, in the matter of review scanning, of eager and convinced readers. Many readers have I known who are genuinely anxious to keep abreast of the best modern stuff, but who took no steps to be reasonably sure of getting the best modern stuff. Perhaps they expected to be wakened in the mornings by the cheerful sound of the best modern stuff knocking at the door. A literary periodical must be read attentively and regularly. If you are keen on photographs, you make a point of subscribing to a photographic journal because it is your pride to be up to date and your anxiety to miss nothing. Why not the same with literature? The circulation of literary periodicals is much too small. It may be somewhat tedious, but it is certainly not a waste of time to read a whole batch of reviews once a week or once a month. 6. Further, it is advisable to take a note of books that sound good. It is even advisable to keep a small notebook in which to inscribe particulars of them. A person with a passion or a mild affection for books is constantly coming across traces of books which entice him, not merely in reviews, but in other books and elsewhere. And he says to himself, "I must remember that. I must obtain that. I must read that." But he never does, because he forgets. Sometimes he is short of a book to read, and he rummages his memory in vain. Sometimes he encounters a book, and he says to himself, "Now, I've read something about that book somewhere. What was it? and he cannot recall what it was. A notebook with titles and other details of books that promise well, and occasionally a cutting from a review pasted in, will put an end to all this gross inefficiency. Moreover, the mere compilation of a personal informatory document has an extraordinary moral effect in confirming one's purpose and strengthening one's endeavour. It nourishes a lawful pride, and gives birth to the previous sensation of being in some sort a specialist. 7. I consider it unwise to confine one's reading to a single subject or branch of literature. A principal subject and a subordinate one should be chosen. Of course, if the desire for knowledge has bitten you very badly in one spot, and you have become an utterly mad specialist, your case is hopeless and advice is wasted. But it does not matter, because you are happy. All utterly mad specialists are happy. I speak as a reasonable man to reasonable men, and I urge them to practise two sharply differing branches of reading, and to keep these going concurrently. I would venture so far as to suggest that it is well to read two books simultaneously. I mean to read a bit of one and then a bit of the other, but I do not insist on this. It is an excellent plan to spread the perusal of some mighty work, say Gibbon, over a long period, giving to it a portion of one's daily leisure, and to diversify it by a series of shorter works. A varied diet is not only more amusing, it is healthier. 8. Again, library subscribers should always keep two lists of books to be borrowed, a list of those that will probably be out, and a list of those that will almost certainly be in. Many library subscribers, I have found, go time after time to the counter with a list of books, all of which are sure to be in great demand, and when, as often happens, a complete blank is drawn, they accept, no matter what, the first book that comes into their heads. No library subscriber who wishes to prosecute without interruption a proper course of any reading whatever can achieve his purpose unless he explores the unpopular portions of the library, and having settled what items in their portions are likely to be useful to him, keeps a list thereof for emergencies. 9. Lastly, it is more practical to resolve to read a given set of books by a certain date, fixing intermediate dates for each book, than to resolve to read for a certain number of hours or minutes every day. Some kind of resolve is essential for the strengthening of natural human frailty, if any worthy project is to be accomplished, and the second resolve is better than none, but the first is the best of all. Under the second, a day lost is definitely lost. You wipe it off the slate and forget it. But under the first, you have an inducement to make up for wasted time or misfortune by extra effort as the inexorable date approaches. End of 9 Points About Reading by Arnold Bennett. Recording by Ruth Golding.